All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We want to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Ethics and Conduct Committee, 7 o'clock on May 11th, 2023. Commissioner Brown, would you ask the invitation, please?
Lord, we come before you this time, and we are so mindful of what we have as children of yours. Help us to always understand the need to seek your wisdom, follow your word, to hold close to that word. Lord, we always try to be the examples that we should be before other men and women. Help us to do the things that are right in your sight. As we deliberate on things that we have scheduled for tonight, give us a portion of that wisdom so that we will be able to do what we need to do in a just manner. Lord, keep our ambitions out of these proceedings. Help us to concentrate on the good for this county. We ask this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there anything on? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I've got some amendments, I guess, to approval of the agenda. One is I would like to add the minutes to the agenda from our last meeting in April. Also would like to just reorder the agenda so that the discussion of handling complaint filed May 5th, 2023 as item B would move up ahead and be the new item A. As well as I'd like to add to discussion surrounding the meetings being calendared for every other month to the agenda. I guess that would be an item C technically.
All right, so you're wanting to add approving the minutes,
Yes, yes, sir.
and then under new business, you want 4A to be a complaint of May 5th, 2023.
Yes.
And then what?
The item B would be the consideration of the April 19th, 2023 complaint. And item C can be just, or I said item C be the calendar. We talk about basically calendaring the meetings for every other month, discussion around that.
Okay.
Or we can move that up if necessary.
Just to make sure I've got it right, Commissioner. You're adding approving the minutes, and then under new business, you want 4A to be the complaint of May 5th, 2023, 4B to be the complaint of April 19, 2023, and then 4C, the meeting schedule.
Correct.
Okay. I've heard that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
I would like to amend that because I have an amendment as well. So I'll amend his amendment,
Okay.
if possible. I'd like to add to the agenda to add discussion regarding the actions we took at the last meeting, discussing regarding actions taken adopting the rules of the Ethics and Conduct Committee policy that we discussed. And I'd like that to actually be ordered first. So A.
I'll second that.
All right, so you're making 4A.
To add discussion regarding actions taken when adopting the rules and ethics conduct committee.
And that was from April 26th. So that would make the May 5th complaint 4B, the April 19th complaint 4C, and the meeting schedule. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That sounds good.
And you
You seconded that?
I second the motion.
Mansfield, is there any discussion on these two? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right, so that is carried with those changes. All right, so, item 3, back to the main agenda now, to accept the agenda as our guide tonight. Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right, so we have adopted the agenda as amended. All right, let's move on to approving the minutes from the April 26, 2023 meeting. Did all the committee members receive them? Okay.
So moved.
Move to adopt. Second. Any discussion, questions? All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right, the minutes are approved. Let's move on now. New business, item A, the discussion of the rules adopted April 26, 2023. Ms. Carpenter, do you want to address that?
Yes, please. Okay, so we had discussion about sending items to the full commission, and after we've made a judgment or whatever, after we've had our hearings. But when I was reviewing the policy, that would not really coincide with what our adopted policy is, and I feel like if we did that, we would be out of compliance with our own policy, and I feel like it was probably an improper motion at the time, and honestly left more questions than answers. So I know that we don't have a really good example because we haven't really had an ethics committee before, and so I just want to make sure we get it right, and I don't want us doing something that goes against the adopted policy. So we can certainly talk about it in the future if there's somebody that wants to bring it up and talk about amending our policy, but just for our committee just to say, hey, we're just going to do this, I don't think that that was proper. So what I'd like to do is make a motion to rescind that action that we took. And it's recorded in the minutes just so that it's clear that any decision made by this committee would go to the floor of the full commission for final ratification for the decision made by the committee with no debate by the full commission, and for an up-down vote only by the full commission.
So that is the last paragraph of 4C on the minutes.
Yes.
Okay. That was a motion to rescind that action. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion, Chairman, or excuse me, Commissioner Mansfield?
Just want to clarify, I guess ask and make sure that part of that motion is understanding part of our ethics and conduct policy resolution still says that this committee can refer the matter to the county legislative body for reprimand or public censure if the county legislative body finds such an action warranted. That this motion is not removing that option from the policy, because that's actually written in the policy. So just to clarify, that's not the intent, right?
No, that is not the intent.
She mentioned changing the policy, that would require the entire commission to.
Correct, but she's talking about the rules that were adopted just for this.
Because we talked about some other things as well that went with our adopted policy. Those weren't a problem, but this did not. And I just felt like it was going to be messy and it didn't get done properly.
All right. Is there any other discussion, questions? Are you ready to vote? Those in favor of the motion to rescind, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And it passes. All right, next on the agenda is a complaint that was filed on May 5th, 2023.
I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to defer this until a lawsuit with the plaintiff is the result.
Second.
Motion to defer until the lawsuit is, what's your wording?
A motion to defer until lawsuit with plaintiff is resolved.
Resolved. All right, you have a motion to defer until the lawsuit with the plaintiff is resolved. Is there a second? You already did, thank you. Yes.
We need to make some clarification on it. It's complainant, not
Not plaintiff.
Complainant.
complainant.
Okay. You okay changing that word?
Yes. The seconder is okay with that?
It is. Thank you.
Complainant.
Thank you, Mr. Sidler, for helping with that. The complainant emailed me, and I was not aware of any litigation that was going on, and just kind of felt if you rule one way, there's people that could think you're trying to make things better for the suit. If you rule the other way, you might be taking a stand against the complainant, and I think taking the high road here ethically is good. Is there any other discussion? Those in favor of deferring, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay. And so that motion passes. Item 4C is a complaint that was filed April 19th, 2023. Complaint was from District 9 County Commissioner Mary Janone. The complaint reads, on April 17th, 2023, at the official county commission meeting, during the nomination of the 8 candidates for the Board of Construction Appeals, Mr. J. West Wynn called into question the 8 candidates on the list submitted by the committee by Commissioner Jerry Mansfield. He stated that he was not in favor of the candidates as one of them had a criminal background with tax and financial issues. He would not name that individual, but alluded that the commissioners could do their own research. By not stating who the individual was, Mr. Wynn placed all of the nominees under suspicion, attacked their character, and slandered them. Mr. Wynn, in his defamatory remarks towards all candidates, alluding to nefarious behavior. One of the candidates was my spouse. His behavior and remarks has potentially damaged my spouse's credibility, my credibility as wife and commissioner, and my family. He's accused my family of criminal behaviors. Mr. Wynn has defamed myself and my spouse. He accused all of them of criminal misconduct and brought doubt to serve on this committee. Mr. Wynn and his statements can be viewed in the official county video. Commissioner Jones, is that an accurate reading? Thank you. All right, according to our ethics and conduct policy that the county commission adopted November 14th of 2022, I believe. Yes. This committee is to give opportunity for the person the complaint is filed against to defend themselves. And so I want to ask Commissioner Wynn if you would come to this microphone, please. Everybody have their mics off. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Eric Dodd, for my attorney, I'll only be making a statement. I will not be answering any questions. This committee is operating out outside the statutory authority in this attempt to adjudicate what constitutes defamation. Per state statute, this committee only has the authority to address two ethical issues: acceptance of a gift and conflict of interest. Both of these are for financial related concerns. Outside of these two ethical issues, this committee does not have the authority to continue deliberation and hold hearings for subject matter outside of the aforementioned issues. For guidance available through CTAS on county ethics committees, this committee should, however, direct a complainant to the appropriate person or agency that may properly address the complaint, and this committee should proceed no further. Now, defamation is a civil matter for a judge in chancery court or circuit court to hear, and you should not be holding this hearing. There's a vetting process that should have occurred, but we just jump right to more or less a trial. So I have a right to political speech. My comments as a political figure are protected under the First Amendment. While my comments may not have been popular with some members of the commission, they did not violate any published ethics rules for this county, those prescribed from the state, or even the standing rules of the commission. Now, you may not agree with what I have to say, but you don't have the right to try to intimidate me or to silence my voice. So as the committee chairman, on April 27th, the specific rule I was accused of violating, and none has been cited. I also asked the chairman on April 28th for the committee to reconsider its actions, and was sent the responsibilities of the committee and informed of when my hearing date was scheduled. I asked our county attorney on May 4th for the statute that grants this committee, or this commission, and the members of this committee the authority to hold a public hearing for the alleged allegations filed against me, and none's been provided. I didn't even get a response. I want to enter into the record the legal opinion issued by CTAS ethics attorney that states our ethics and conduct policy should be considered null and void, as it has no basis in state law, is not statutorily authorized, and cannot be enforced. There is no power authorizing this committee or the commission to enforce any recommendations put forward. The only thing this committee can do is talk about me, which I find ironic given the subject matter of this baseless complaint. So any action taken by this committee moving forward could be seen as a form of official oppression and official misconduct, both of which are criminal offenses and abuses of government power. The very nature of how this committee has prescribed its proceedings appear to be intentionally punishing not just me, but any commissioner for exercising their First Amendment rights. But since we're here, let's get a few things on the record for my defense. So first, where's the burden of proof from the accuser outside of assumption and opinion? What evidence has Commissioner Young presented that proves her spouse was the object of concern being raised in my comments? If there has been any record of financial impropriety or criminal activity presented by Commissioner Young, I request it be entered into the minutes. And Commissioner Young has not once asked me who I was referring to. So why does she believe my comments were directed towards her and her husband? So while I'm surprised to see part of a private conversation between Commissioner Miller and myself included in this complaint, I'm even more surprised to see that it states I made several assertions against all 8 candidates, specifically Mr. Janun, husband of Commissioner Janun, that were defamatory. These accusations are false. My comment was about one unnamed individual and was a statement of fact from public court documents. I think it's important to note that we also did not vote on these appointees individually, since the slate of candidates was motioned by Commissioner Mansfield and agreed and approved. So an all or nothing vote was required for the slate. Nothing in my comment was opinion or an accusation. My concern was simply a statement of public court records concerning an unnamed individual. This unnamed individual had 14 instances of legal issues documented in our public court records, all involving the same person as the defendant, starting in 1998 and as recent as 2022. Now, I would say there is a trend of behavior that should cause concern for anyone doing due diligence to qualify a candidate being appointed to make a decision or recommendations that impact the over 200,000 residents of this county. It's unfortunate that persecuting me for recognizing facts that are in public court records is easier than acknowledging someone has a history of poor decision making. So my position on not naming names to protect all parties has remained consistent. If my intent was to defame anyone, why would I continue to protect the identity of the individual? So I have no knowledge of Mr. Schnuck's financial background or the existence of a criminal history, and the person that is being referenced does not have any relation to the Schnuck family that I'm aware of. Mr. Schnuck's complaint also alleges that my behavior and remarks concerning public court documents, public court records, have potentially damaged the credibility of her husband, and her family, and has brought doubt to their ability to serve. My words have not done any of these things, as I have not named any names. So I'm dumbfounded as to why Commissioner Schnuck feels my remarks damage the credibility of her and her family. Members of this commission continue to take actions to silence my voice, the voice of the voters I represent, actions to discredit me and to discourage me. This hearing, like the continued actions of my fellow commissioners, will not dissuade me from continuing to voice my concerns and the concerns of the citizens of Sumner County. As a conservative Republican, I don't agree with what appears to be government overreach and abuse of power. And I will not stand idly by with my mouth shut and allow this to happen to anyone. The potentially intended or unintended consequences of stating my reputation publicly through this hearing has already been accomplished. And it's shameful that this is accepted behavior by my peers. So you're now setting a precedent that any commissioner operating within their legal duty, if they dare to voice a concern that anyone doesn't like, they will be paraded out in public, in a public forum, for an illegal hearing. Now I'm asking that we quit playing politics. The people of Sumner County are sick of it, and let's do the work we're sent to do. Now I request that my statement here today and the attached exhibits that as backup documentation be entered into the official minutes for this hearing as a part of my defense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Yes, with no questions to be asked or answered, we're next set to deliberate. First question would be, based on what we have, do we feel that the complaint is valid and requires further action of the ethics committee? Any discussion anybody wants to make on
I would like to make a motion, just since the accused is not willing to answer questions, that this body basically state our questions on the record that we might have had, so to discuss those.
what we would have asked Commissioner Nguyen?
Yep.
Make a motion or a second for us to state those questions? Second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay. What questions would you like to ask?
Okay, yeah, I had a couple. He actually partially answered one. But my first question was, when did Mr. Nguyen learn of the information that concerned him about the unnamed candidate that he referenced at the commission meeting? So I was curious time-wise when he learned that. My next question was, why did you choose not to name the person? I think he answered that the way he would answer if I were to ask it again. The next question was, how many years ago were the crimes committed that you referred to? And then the last question, since the Board of Construction Appeals has never met in Sumner County, I'm unclear what their duties are. And I was going to have him explain what the specific financial improprieties and criminal activity are, so that I could better understand his concerns about how they would negatively affect this person sitting on that board. And that's all the questions that I had to start anyway.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Mansfield?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I had some questions. I mean, one of them was the fact that the accused stated that an appointee has multiple instances of financial impropriety as well as some criminal activity, and thereby accused all 8 individuals of, I'll say, quote, looking after their own self-interest over what's right. That's an accusation. And I wanted to know, how did he know that? Did he personally perform a background check on all 8 of these individuals, because this was a slate? There was never a motion made from the floor to disagree with or question the group and approve. There was never an amendment made to do them individually. I was never reached out to by anybody regarding any of these appointments, specifically outside of the previous meetings of the full county commission, which were asked, and because this slate had come before us before, and so that, just want to state that on the record. And I would have asked, basically I wanted to ask, of the 8 individuals that were accused in this statement from the floor of the commission, and as a blanket statement, who the appointee was that he stated that has multiple instances of financial impropriety as well as some criminal activity. I wanted him to name the person, because by not naming the person, that is worse, not better, in my opinion, because if you are concerned about an individual and you have proof of a crime, that should be stated, because this is a public meeting and there are public names on this meeting, and that would, in my opinion, be correct if you're addressing a specific person with a specific issue that you have, or otherwise just say, I just can't vote for this, slate. But none of those things ever happened. There is precedent for rejecting an appointee that's been come up as part of a process based on an offense or a law that's been violated and broken. That has been stated before in a public meeting for a singular appointee and naming them by name. So I don't feel that would have been out of order or uncalled for in any instance, because the names are there. But by creating a blank statement of saying that that's basically accusing these people of financial impropriety as well as criminal activity, that was, in my opinion, subversive of good order, and it disrupted the order of business, because I believe there was a commissioner who voted for the entire slate prior, but then once hearing that accusation of criminal activity, voted against it, so it did sway the opinion. His accusation had the intended effect of casting a doubt, not only on and swaying and affecting a vote based on information that, as far as we know, is false information, that also cast negative aspersions on all those county commissioners from talking about politicizing something in a negative manner, of saying, because anybody who voted in the affirmative on that slate of 8, that we're voting for criminals. So that was the narrative, that was the unspoken narrative that's being spoken and set up for a political posturing, in my opinion, a part of that. So that was a problem that I had after reading this complaint and watching the video again and seeing exactly what was quoted and stated. Another question I would have had is was he sure that the information he claims to have is a reliable source of reporting accurate information? Where's the source of this criminal activity? Where's the source of this information, or whatever this is? I wanted to ask the plaintiff, the accused, if they had actually ever been charged with a misdemeanor or received a civil judgment himself. And if so, how did he handle the situation if he's had been charged with a misdemeanor or any crime himself? I just felt that was, again, I wish I could have had these questions answered, but to make it a blanket statement that you're casting aspersions and tainting the character of 8 individuals with one broad stroke instead of dealing with the subject matter, very, bringing proof of that versus just making a statement that I believe, would be false. And obviously it's false, but if not all of them, at least 7 of them, if they be true. So those would have been my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any other members have any questions they would ask? Maybe commissioners can help the citizen member here.
I do have one statement that was made. So when this was brought before the commission in November, I did state from the floor that I spoke with the general counsel for the Bureau of Ethics and Campaign Finance, who is responsible for managing the law that requires counties to have an ethics policy. And the current, or the previous ethics policy that was adopted in 2007 was written by CTAS as a sample, just a model policy that Sumner County could adopt, or we could write our own, is what this attorney for the Bureau of Ethics and Campaign Finance said. The county at the time chose to just adopt the entire thing, point blank, without any modifications. And however, the problem was that I discussed with the attorney was that it only related to campaign finances, essentially. There was no recourse for taking action for disciplinary action for violations of other codes of conduct or ethics that are not related to finances. So according to the chief counsel for the Bureau of Ethics and Campaign Finance, she said that each county has the option to A, adopt the sample model policy from CTAS with no changes to it, or B, they can modify and adopt the modified version, or C, they could adopt their own written policy. So what Sumner County did is we adopted option B and modified the sample model policy from CTAS to include an ethics and conduct, and that is the name of the policy, that's the name of the resolution, and that is the name of the section as far as handling this. So for, I don't know who, I spoke with somebody else at CTAS who basically disagreed with whatever opinion was given. So, and I spoke with the general counsel and attorney for the Ethics and Bureau of Campaign Finance. So I basically would object any comments that were made spuriously during that defense. So I just wanted to put that out there for the record to let you know what the counsel said for CTAS.
Thank you. Statement was made that group and approve was the only choice. I've not attended every meeting, but it seems to me there were times that I saw someone ask the commission chairman to do them individually, and he did them. Am I remembering right? Is that, Mr. Sittler, is that a possibility? If the motions to group and approve, can a commissioner ask that the nominees be looked at individually?
Yes, because you have to have a motion to group and approve first. So somebody could not second it, or it just goes through the same motion requirements as anything else.
You just have a motion to do it individually?
It would require a motion and a second and a vote to do it.
But it's a possibility.
And it has been requested, yes.
I may have got his statement wrong, but it seemed like he alluded to that was the only choice. It was all or nothing. And I was thinking, I even seen times where the county commission chairman just, when somebody asked, he obliged to that. So I wanted to make sure of that. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Carter.
So I took this pretty seriously, and I did a lot of research and came up with a lot of notes that I wanted to go over, just kind of my thoughts and review of all of it. Should we still share that, or how are we going to proceed? Should I just speak as though we're moving on like normal and go over the things I reviewed and kind of my assessment of what I came up with, or are we just not going to do that?
Makes it difficult when
Yeah.
he makes a statement only.
I would like to hear it.
My comment would be, you want whatever your vote's going to be, if you want anything in the minutes to back what it is you voted, this would be the opportunity to do it.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I will,
Go ahead.
and like I said, I made notes, so I may read it at times, but, asking myself when presented with this task was looking at what was said and thinking about what was the consequence of his words, what was the fallout of his words, and then also what was the motive of why he said what he said. Was it just a mistake? Was it simply, put it out there, he's allowed to say it, and that's that, and he didn't mean anything by it, and I truly wanted to try to get to the bottom of that. So what I started with was kind of the timeline. This slate of candidates had gone to the Committee on Committees in February 13th, and I don't believe, I went back and watched the meeting, I don't believe Mr. Wynn was at that meeting or had made any statements. That might be the first time these people's names have been brought up. Again, at this point in time, I have no idea. I have not been told who this person is. To this day, I don't know who he's referring to. At the full county commission meeting on February 27th, Mr. Wynn asked for background information on 2 specific candidates, naming them for the Industrial Development Board. He then went on to ask for background on all 8 of these particular candidates for the Board of Construction Appeals, not naming anyone. Said that he didn't make any other questions or comments after Mr. Mansfield gave him the background information he had asked for. He then voted no on the slate without stating any reasons for doing so, which is his prerogative, of course. So the first vote, he voted no, and had none of this other stuff had come up. Since that motion failed that night, though, it was brought back to the Committee on Committees meeting on April 10th. Mr. Wynn was not in attendance at that meeting either and didn't voice any concerns regarding any of the recommendations. Per the chairman of the Committee on Committees, which is Mr. Mansfield, who just mentioned that he had not been contacted by Mr. Wynn. So at no point between February 13th, where these names were first brought up publicly, to 4/10, when the second final vote was taken, Mr. Wynn had never reached out to the chairman or anyone on that committee for any information or to give them information or to ask any questions or voice any concerns about any of the candidates, which was why I was going to ask the one question, when did you find out this information? Because obviously it was somewhere in there. Based on that timeline, to me, he didn't really come off as having a true concern about the person being on the committee. Because if I were truly concerned and thought this was detrimental for this person to serve on a committee, I would want that committee to understand why I felt that way and who the person was and what they'd done. So to me, there was a lack of real true concern, as evidenced by never bringing it forth to the committee or its members, not naming the person, not specifying the crimes, or when they occurred, or how they would affect the placement on the board. The comment appears to have been made to simply cast enough doubt to cause the motion to fail. And Mr. Mansfield alluded to this, but the very next day, after that meeting, because I did notice that one of the commissioners had voted yes before and no that night. So the next day I spoke with him and I said, why did you vote no? Like, what changed your mind? And he said, well, it was what Mr. Wynn said. He said, but I regret doing that because I could have just looked into it after the fact. And then if there was legitimacy to what he was saying, we could make a movement to remove him, work on it that way. And he said, so yes, but it was what he said because I didn't want to look like I'm good with putting criminals on boards. He said, but I didn't know what he was talking about, what the crimes were, or anything. And he said, so I felt like that's what I should do. I felt I was kind of in a pinch, didn't know how to handle it. So to me, that feels like that's what the motive was to just sort of throw the comment out there and encourage people to maybe not vote for it. And it happened legitimately with one of the people who had voted yes before. So not only, in his defense, he was saying that he didn't accuse 8 people, but he didn't accuse anyone. And so that's the problem. He didn't accuse one, so therefore, by default, you accuse all 8, which is the basis of Ms. Genome's complaint from what I can tell. The problem is her husband was one of the 8 and he didn't name anyone. So by default, everyone's like, who is it and what did they do? And so you're automatically accusing everyone when you accuse no one in particular. So that was my problem. And I felt like if he in fact had a true concern then he would have reached out to the committee and said, here's some information, do what you want, but my conscience is clear, and here's, you know, so if he's not gonna do that, and he's not gonna put that information out there, why didn't he simply just vote no, like he had done the meeting prior? So to me, that points to an agenda or a motive. I'm doing this just to sort of cast doubt, change the vote, affect the vote in that way, which is political. So, and like I said, as of this moment, I've never been told that, yes, Mr. Wynn said this is who it is. So I'm still wondering, what are the crimes, who did it, and I think Mr. Mansell also mentioned, and I have this in my notes, but when you cast doubt on those 8, you're also casting doubt on all of the commissioners who voted for it, because then it just sort of looks like they're cool with criminals and placing criminals on boards, and they don't really care. So I feel like that the whole thing was just sort of to put that out there in that way, and a real concern would have gone a different route. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Any other thoughts, questions? Okay, what is there a motion for determining if this meets the criteria of our policy for further action? Is that our next step?
I'll make a motion to discuss whether or not this is a violation of our policy and state the violations that that might be determined.
Okay, for a second, motion to discuss.
I'll say.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown.
We just, once we receive the complaint,
Your microphone.
once we receive the complaint, you know, trying to figure out, looking at what violation there might have occurred, and looking through our policy, what applies to it is in under section 5, ethics and conduct complaints. These are not, it would be basically numbers 4 and 5 are the ones that I guess I would bring up for discussion for this body. Any action subversive of good order, overt acts against peace, or which materially and substantially disrupts the order of business during meetings of the county legislative body. And I guess the second part, 5, where it starts with or, which reflects negatively on the character of the commission or its members during meetings of the county legislative body, based on Commissioner Johnson's complaint, is that she's basically complaining that what was stated in an accusatory blanket statement, basically saying all 8 members, not identifying one member, you're identifying all 8 members as being, have committed criminal acts and having multiple instances of financial impropriety. That I think her claim is that it is reflecting negatively on the character of her and her family during the meeting of the county legislative body. I guess I would argue as far as point 4, if we're discussing this, as far as going back what Mrs. Carpenter said regarding the intent of casting dispersions on people's character in a defamatory nature. I understand this is not, we're not adjudicating defamation, but when you lie about a group of people, that creates for political gain, and to me, it was, I feel, subversive of good order, and during the meeting of our county legislative body, according to this policy number 4, and that it had an intended effect of changing somebody's vote to the negative who really wanted to vote for all 8 of them, as well as casting negative aspersions on all those who voted in the affirmative, basically, say that they're voting for criminals and approving of that. And we know the politically charged narrative that we're talking about, that's exactly the kind of stuff that gets said about this body multiple times. So I'm just making comments. I mean, if we're going to apply anything to violations, those that are 2, if I'm reading Commissioner strict language of our complaint and applying it to this, it would be that sections 4 and 5, numbers 4 and 5 of section 5. So that's just my thoughts if we're going to name what that would be for definition's sake.
Any other comments or discussion?
I will just say I had not really considered the number 5, but number 4 is what stood out to me as well. So that was the first thing I did was read through the policy and decide, does this violate anything, despite the notes I made and how I feel about, what his motives were. Does it violate anything? And number 4 is what stood out to me as well. And specifically, overt acts against peace or which materially and substantially disrupts the order of business during meetings. Again, throwing words out there that literally altered one of the votes. And then the fact that there's, not naming anybody is overt act, I felt like.
I'll just add, I think this would be a different situation had the person being accused of these had actually been named and brought forward with actual documentation of this as a legitimate, because that would have been factual and fact-based and indisputable if it did exist in a person. That would not have been considered defamatory, even if somebody would have been upset. Somebody said that in a public meeting because a commissioner, I believe, would have a right to say that about if they're bringing a charge against somebody who's being appointed for something that is serious. That I don't think that even the person civilly would be able to even go after that commissioner and say anything as far as a lawsuit. If they were afraid of that, just because I think that is, if you're going to bring that up, do I think it's in poor taste? Yes. Do I think it's intended to make that person look bad? Yes, if somebody necessarily did that, could be. Not necessarily, but I don't think it would be. I don't think we would be here had that happened, and I don't think there would have been a complaint, and I wouldn't have found any violation. I mean, in my personal opinion, had that actually been specified specifically, or even tonight we could ask questions and been specified. I mean, I would have been, I think could have cleared things up, but that's not how this went. So I just wanted to point that out, that I think this could have gone differently. To your point earlier about there has been specific questions, there has been objections to improving a slate and wanting to do them one by one, and those motions have been made before when this happened. That was not asked this time, so definitely there was scenes that there was alternative motive and with negative consequences to it. So that was just not in good order, in good conduct of a member of this body. Everybody can have their opinion and share their opinion, and, get called out of order. But again, this was a complaint brought about by a commissioner, calls her husband, and she feels that their reputation has been tarnished in this way. And, according to this, the violation I would see is 4 and 5, but reflecting negatively on that member's character and the character of her family member who's been accused of a crime. I assume falsely, because there's no evidence presented, so that's I'm assuming, so that's just, I want to add that in.
Mr. Brown?
One of the things that I see is a pattern, because I know last year he also alleged some things that were in a video that he had on Facebook about myself. And whenever it came down to it, and he talked to the news media and all that kind of stuff, when they finished their investigations, when they talked to the other officials, it didn't happen. I mean, there was no story there whatsoever. And so I think a lot of this is just to try and gain political points and show that he is part of an elite that is supposedly guarding our county, whereas he's raising a lot of false allegations.
Commissioner Miller?
Can I ask Commissioner Jeanette one question? reached out to you and asked you if your husband was a criminal or had seen these allegations and thought that maybe it was true about your husband.
I've had people ask me about it, not that he was a criminal, but ask me about it. Everybody watches it, the videos, but I have had people ask me about it, because, I see nothing on them. But, I'm gonna say something, I have to say something. When people take hate and they use it in a way for politics or whatever, and they want to make a point, when you are filled with hate about something, and we've had a lot of discernment in our whole scheme of things with the commission and the people getting along and all that. We tend to lose our path of what is good and I was very upset when Mr. Wynn said this, and I didn't say I abstained, and I didn't even realize the impact towards me and my family and my husband until the next morning. And it angered me. It angered me really bad. I don't want any ill will with Mr. Wynn. Mr. Wynn is Mr. Wynn. He's a grown man. He makes his own decisions. But it hurt me to feel that there are people that just want to constantly attack just because you ran for office, because you won, because you are doing what you think is right, and you want to attack other people. There are 8 people on that list. 8 people from this community, from this county. And to me, that was an assault on them. And it was an assault on my husband and me. I don't know what Mr. Wynn was thinking. I don't know what's in his head. I don't want ill will for Mr. Wynn. I don't. I have nothing to gain. I have nothing to... I have nothing against Mr. Wynn. I don't. I don't know anything about Mr. Wynn other than he's a commissioner and what he says. But by throwing a net over 8 people, and if my husband's name wasn't on there, I would still stand here right now and do this because it was wrong to do that. It was a net thrown over 8 people, and you had to figure it out. To me, that is saying, if you have no sin, then throw the first stone. And I've just been very disappointed and angry. But again, I don't want any ill will for Mr. Wynn. But I do hope that Mr. Wynn will see what I'm saying. And, I don't know what else to say about it. He wouldn't know if anybody said anything to me about my husband or me, or I'm a professional person. I am a professional person, and I run my life like a professional person. And I am not in the business of tearing down people because of an agenda. I would do that. But I would ask, if anything, Mr. Wynn make an absolute apology to those people. That's all I've got to say. But even, like I said, even if my husband's name wasn't on there, it is the citizens of this county that volunteered for this position. They volunteered themselves. and we know what you're going to do right now. That's all I have on that. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Commissioner Denise.
I have a question for the members of the committee, the commissioners especially. Again, sitting out there is different than what you're doing in the meetings. Has there been times where individuals have been named for nominees as committees that somebody objected to individuals? Have we seen that before?
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking, look out the room, what made me think of it is I'm pretty sure there was somebody sitting in the room that there was a lot of talk about serving on a committee or a board or something, so it's been done.
We voted them down.
Okay, thank you for that. I was thinking that, but again, I'm not involved in the level you are, so. All right. Is there any further discussion? All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that, it's a violation of our policy. Section 5, numbers 4 and 5. Where I say section 4, number 4, and then 5B, I'll say the second part of 5B, as a violation of our conduct, ethics and conduct policy.
We have a motion and a second that Commissioner Wynn violated section 5, paragraphs 4, subversive of good order, and 5B, reflecting negatively on the character of the commission or members during meetings. Is there any discussion on the motions? All right, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for what the Code of Ethics and Conduct Committee may do according to our resolution and our policy.
I was just getting there, thank you.
I'd like to refer this matter to the Office of the Law Director for a legal opinion and or recommendation for action according to number 1 of this policy for violation of the Code of Ethics and Conduct. The committee may. So my motion is to refer the matter to the Law Director for a legal opinion or recommendation for action, if he has one now or later.
For legal opinion.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to use the exact wording in the ethics and conduct policy that the county commission adopted. It says, for violations of the Code of Ethics and Conduct, the committee may refer the matter to the Office of the Law Director for a legal opinion and or recommendations for action. So, capture the motion, okay? So, and there's a second. Is there any discussion? Committee members that are in favor of that say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Mr. Sittler, is it?
I don't know if I've got this thing on.
Oh, let me turn mine off. There you go.
Okay. I've done quite a bit of research on the laws that relates to this, and I'm not big on doling out punishments, but I think the easiest, softest way for this committee to address this issue would be to remedy it how it started, which is a public apology, public withdrawal of the statement and maybe, the remarks that were made by the offender in some sort of commission setting, probably a commission meeting. But that's my recommendation. Obviously, it's the committee's decision.
The public apology,
Public apology and a public withdrawal of the objectionable statement remarks in a commission setting.
Public setting would be in a commission meeting, is that
Yes, sir.
okay?
That's my recommendation. Kind of how it started, end of how it started.
Any other questions for the law director? Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we adopt what he said to the law director said as.
Turn mic on. Motion start.
I make a motion that we adopt what the law director had said and put that forward to the full commission for vote.
What was the motion you were stating?
That he published the issue of public apology and also withdraw the statement
In a commission meeting.
in the commission.
I guess, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I guess what if the,
That's the motion.
I'll second that motion. So, for discussion, what if the member doesn't agree to that or do that? What happens, I guess, would be, I mean, there's other options in our policy, such as counseling with the county commission chairman, removal of board or committee assignments if such members are restored to good standing and permanently replaced. I think you can't remove somebody from the tenure chief. I don't think any rest of them would be applicable here. Some of them are for employees based on the policy. So would you recommend as part of your, like, if
Well, to seek further remedy, yes. If he does not agree to that, then we would have to seek further remedy according to what it says.
okay. I guess the question is, would you want to just
Do we need to go ahead and do that?
do that as part of an amendment to your motion, or?
Yeah, not in the motion. Or add it to the motion.
Okay, I'll amend, I guess, your motion, Mr. Chairman. So I guess the motion to, just for the minutes, is to accept the recommendation from the law director. And I guess I'll add, if the member refuses the apology and withdrawal of the statement, I guess move per our resolution for, I guess it would be number 2, 3, removal of board or committee assignments until such members are restored to good standing or permanently replaced. Would be my
Is
motion.
that on, that's what the committee may do?
Correct.
Okay, number 3.
Well, yeah, they're not indented, unfortunately, in the formatting, but it's
Right.
that number 3.
But it's indented number 3.
Correct, indented number 3.
Okay.
Would be my amendment to Commissioner Brown's motion.
No, second.
Okay. All right, just making sure I get this right. So the motion as amended now
whatever this,
Oh,
the actual policy says. Without objection, I guess, technically we need to vote on the amendments to the motion, but if the maker of the motion has no objections, we can combine it. I can add if he'll accept my amendment as part of his main motion.
Commissioner Brown, you good with?
Okay. Just require one vote.
Is everybody clear on what the motion is? All right.
Can I ask one question?
Sure. Discussion now.
So on that where it says the member is restored to good standing, I assume that means then when he does apologize, and then is that correct? To
That
assume?
would be my understanding. Mr. Sittler, could you weigh in on that, please?
Yes, that would be my understanding as well, that we've already said what it takes to get back, if that's accomplished at whatever time, then he's in good standing.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any other discussion on the motion as amended? All right. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Getting back to our agenda, under item 4D, meeting schedule. Law department, I think, with a good idea rather than the uncertainty of exactly when we meet, to go ahead and schedule regular meetings. Let's say since this is May, we do it on odd number months.
I would recommend July. It'll be July, September, November, finish out the year. Those would be odd number
Right.
months.
Okay. Is there any discussion before we entertain a motion?
I'll second.
Okay.
So then those would just be those would be automatically
Those
scheduled.
are the months, now we have to pick
If we needed to, if something were to arise and we needed to address, we would simply call a special call meeting between them.
Mr. Sittler, I would think
That's always an option.
okay, so
And if
if
there's,
Chairman Hyde, for instance, said, I need you to meet, this is something,
As
some
long
weighty
as
matter.
Proper notices
We,
are done.
as long as we do the notice,
Yes.
we can do that, yes.
who made the motion? Did you make the motion, Chairman, for this? Commissioner Brown, second?
We discussed it, I think he took your motion, you picked the months.
Okay, so am I
Or
making?
you picked the months.
I'll make the motion.
Let's get a good clean motion, as well as what day?
Clarification, I'm the maker of the motion.
Okay.
Commissioner Brown is the second of the motion. Odd number of months, starting in July. I would add to that, basically, obviously, the caveat being that there's nothing to discuss, we would cancel the meetings, just like any other, like financial management or beer board or
And that's-
any other meetings.
That's not an issue, Mr. Sittler?
No, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for helping the new guy.
So do we want to set a day and time? I guess would we want to do, what do we do in
So
April?
the Board of Zoning Appeals, is that who normally meets tonight?
It is. Would you, we
Do
did,
we do third?
in April, we did Wednesday, the 26th at 4 p.m. So would you want to, which is basically the fourth Wednesday? I don't know if we would want to keep that at the same, or is that a problem? No, don't do that? Okay, never, but we wanted to do it on the third week after the commission meeting, maybe like Thursday of that week before commission meeting?
So we do third Thursday, or I guess sometimes you move it, is that correct?
Yeah, we can change it, but I'm just saying if we want to
Fridays or
put a schedule like
Third
the
Thursday.
third Thursday, since the commission meets the third week, so at least you're there. So I guess if somebody wants to go out of town that fourth week, somebody else will be here. So if we had to meet, so third Thursday, what time do you guys want to say? Since we're discussing this.
6 p.m.
My wife would appreciate a little earlier time.
I mean, we say
if possible.
5, can we say 5 p.m. or 4:30 p.m.?
Yeah.
Is that too?
Fourth Thursday?
Well,
Third.
the third Thursday, but is like 4:30 or 5 p.m., is that okay?
What time?
Do you want to say 4:30?
All right, so you want to make that in one motion?
Yeah, so I'll restate my motion.
Michael?
I'll restate my motion of calendar this meeting every other month, starting with July and the odd months, on the third Thursday of the month at 4:30 p.m. in room 112.
Okay. Okay, we have a second. Any questions? Anybody need clarity on the motion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Hearing none, it passes. We move on to item 5 with a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Miller and a second by everyone else on the committee. We'll put Commissioner Brown to the record. We stand adjourned.
I couldn't find you, but never mind.